Hello and welcome back to the next part in my tutorial series on QNAP NAS in the newer version of their system and software platform QTS5. We've already gone through the first time setup video prior to this, and I do strongly recommend that you watch that video if you've not already. In today's video we're going to be talking about backup and synchronization operations, two words that a lot of people throw around and a lot of the time get mixed up, even myself from time to time, as I talk about this subject quite a lot, when in fact synchronization and backups are actually quite different things as far as the intended purpose. And indeed, even before we get to backup and synchronization, a lot of users need to understand one key rule that I do repeat, I would say at least once a fortnight. Backup and RAID are not the same thing. RAID is not a backup. If you did follow my previous video, I guided you through creating a RAID configuration on your NAS. In this case, I put 4 SSDs inside this NAS system, and I've got them in a lovely little RAID configuration there. If we have a little look there at the bottom, and we scroll on down, we go to that RAID group we created. You'll see here we create a RAID 5. We've got those 3 disks, and with the 4th disk we're going to create a hot spare on that. Now again, we will be talking about that in a lot more detail soon, it has to be said, but the reason I'm bringing up the RAID once again is a lot of you will look at a RAID and go, well, I've got my backup in place, time to go to bed. Tough. You don't have a backup there. What you've got there is a safety net. What you've got is redundancy. So let's, for example, imagine you're running lots of different mobile phones. Maybe it's your partner, your children, family members. They're all backing up their laptops. They're backing up their phones onto this NAS system. They're backing it up and they're quite pleased. But then when they start running out of room on their phone, when they start running out of room on the laptop, maybe they lose one of those devices. One way or another, they either make room on the device or delete or lose the data on the phone or the tablets. At that moment, this NAS is no longer a backup. It is the single version of those files, and therefore it doesn't count as a backup. No amount of RAID is going to protect you. RAID only helps if one of these drives in this RAID configuration dies. If one of those drives was to fail, then what would happen is you would still be able to access the data that's on the NAS, but in a degraded state. If you lose 2 disks in this RAID 5 config, you lose all your data. Once you introduce a new drive, the RAID will rebuild, and you can access the data in a faster state and get back your safety net. None of the things I've said are a backup. They are quite literally a safety net. They don't help you if the data is deleted from somewhere else and then it's the only copy of the file. Now, in today's video, I'm going to talk about numerous backup and synchronization methods. A backup, as mentioned, is when files exist in multiple locations in the event that if one fails, you've still got another copy of that data. Then you have backups. Synchronization is when you have 2 areas of storage that are connected and the data inside them is synchronized. So if changes either on both or one or the other are recognized and in most cases acted upon. Synchronization isn't the same as a backup because synchronization often exists so that 2 parties can access data at the same time, whereas a backup, one should be passive, one should be active, one should be primary, one should be secondary. Synchronization is more about having equal footing on storage areas, and in today's video I'm going to help you set up both backups and synchronized areas of storage between your QNAP NAS with QTS5 and a number of other different platforms. Now, I may have touched on this earlier on, but snapshots are a big part of an early method of having recovery. They are neither a backup or a synchronized storage area. These fall into the category of a safety net. And in the previous video, I did guide you through how to set up a snapshot. But just in case you missed that, let's go through it again very, very quickly. Make sure you've watched the previous video where I talked to you about how to create a shared folder. But for now, go into File Station, and from within this volume here, we can go ahead, right click or select the dotted option here and go to Snapshot Manager. As you can see, I've already created a retention policy here on that data volume. It goes through all of the different individual folders and allows us to revert to an earlier version. Snapshots take blueprints of the overall storage in the volume or individual folders and shared folders if you choose, and then reverts back to them. But you have to make sure you keep all of the architectural changes and the timeline, because if you lose one of the timeline, you're not able to restore beyond that point. Now, in order to create that snapshot schedule, go into Schedule Snapshot. From there, it will then invite you to say whether you want to enable snapshots, which I've already done. And then from there, you can go with Smart Snapshots, where it will learn a lot about time and access. And then you can change the retention policies very, very easily, and the guaranteed amount of snapshot space that is allocated during that process. Again, it is recommended that you take advantage of some of the archival options that will be featured in the enterprise video in order to action a lot of your snapshots being in a parallel storage area, which is a lot easier for retention and a little bit of peace of mind there. But for now, let's carry on with the rest of our backup and synchronization. And again, I will cover snapshots again in this video series, as well as in a lot more detail in the enterprise videos. Now, as mentioned, synchronization and backup is a very different kettle of fish. In the Application Center, there are lots of options available to you on the QNAP platform that are both first and third party that cover this subject. In today's video, we're predominantly going to look at first party applications. There are lots of tools that allow you to synchronize not only between your local PC or Mac system and the NAS, but also to synchronize the NAS with another NAS, USB, and the cloud. So as you can see here, although there's lots of third-party platforms supported, from Nakivo to OwnCloud, Elephant Drive, and more, we're going to be looking at the ones that we've installed here that are predominantly first-party. If we move over to the next window, you'll see them all laid out here. Now, as mentioned, there's an enterprise version of this video coming which will feature the likes of BoxSafe, Hyperdata Protector, and QObjects. But it is worth touching on them here just in case you're not aware of them or you're not quite sure if you're going to need them or not. QObjects takes advantage of linking with the likes of Amazon S3 and object-based remote storage and allows you to back up, synchronize, and indeed utilize that area of storage. It does require quite high bandwidth connectivity, and it's recommended when connecting with those remote buckets here that you do take advantage of higher bandwidth and higher internet connectivity to ensure the smoothest level of connectivity. Often associated with target LANs and or fiber channel connectivity, it's very enterprise indeed. But if you do have an existing object storage available, then it's recommended to check this out. BoxSafe is what you utilize if you have an existing SaaS storage provider or software as a service level of subscription that you can synchronize with the likes of Office 365 and Google Office Space, thereby giving you a more native synchronized access to the likes of those email accounts, word processing in Google Docs and Office 365, email accounts, and more. It allows you to synchronize with those platforms and therefore in your office environment, be it on the network or the internet, access your email, access your files, access everything via the NAS and onto the cloud. And in the event that you have disconnected internet connectivity, it won't sever your access to all of these files in the native way that you're used to accessing them. And then, if your internet is restored, any changes to that data that you've made locally on the cached data within BoxSafe on those SaaS services will then be synchronized and re-established with the cloud platform. In simple terms, if you're someone that utilizes these third-party cloud office applications, but you're worried about a severing of internet connectivity, severing your access to those files and those services, BoxSafe running parallel with them will allow you to have two separate means of accessing it. And the severing of the internet will not sever your access to those files that have been cached onto the NAS in the short term. And therefore, when the internet is re-established, the status quo can be re-established. Again, very enterprise, but very useful indeed. Finally, Hyperdata Protector is for those of you that are using virtual machine services and those virtual machines are living on the likes of VMware or Hyper-V, or even some of the Microsoft level connected VM platforms and hypervisors. If we log in to the application here and we get rid of the tutorial message here, you're able to see that you can connect it with existing hypervisors, again as mentioned, VMware and Hyper-V, and therefore have those remote access virtual machine platforms synchronize their files locally with your NAS, much like we saw with general files, emails and accounts and cloud data on BoxSafe, but this time using virtual machine files. You can even export some of these files in some or complete ways, taking advantage of the virtual machine platform from QNAP Virtualization Station to allow remote access VMs to be hosted locally on the NAS as a form of recovery, something we'll touch on later in the virtual machine part of this series. But we're going to move away now from those three rather enterprise level synchronization tools for more specialized data remotely and move on to the more accessible and more all-round popular applications for synchronization and backup. Of these three tools, the one that is going to be the most used and the most familiar to most people is going to be HBS3, or Hybrid Backup Sync. This is a single management tool for not only building a 3-2-1 backup strategy, but arranging connection with a number of different synchronized platforms in order to utilize them one step further and turn them into individual backups. As you can see here, a pop-up has just appeared on screen with regards to a USB drive. I've connected a USB drive to this NAS to include USB synchronization and backups onto today's video, but I wanted to include it mid-video and attach the drive mid-video to show you what can happen when you attach a drive. Once you attach a USB storage drive for the first time, it will ask you how you want to utilize it. Do you want to use it for general file management access, so it opens in the File Station application? Do you want to use it as a backup tool? And as you can see, Hybrid Backup Sync, if installed, will begin and allow you to open up the tool directly to start managing that USB backup. Alternatively, you can integrate it into the snapshot settings and, as mentioned earlier, create parallel storage for those snapshots so they don't reside within the NAS. Finally, you can change the access to this drive to make sure that although you may have created multiple users on your QNAP NAS, that only some users can access it, and even then change their read, write or denial privileges. I'm not going to activate any of these now because I want to go through the steps with you on screen via the tool, but it's worth just remembering that connecting a drive for the first time will often allow you to access the applications directly from this pop-up. Now, from within Hybrid Backup Sync 3, the first thing it talks to you about is creating jobs, available storage space and more. There at the top there is also mention of QDedupe, something I will talk about on the enterprise level settings. But once again, just for making things nice and clear in this video so you know what it is and whether you maybe use it, QDedupe, and in essence deduplication, is when you are backing up from multiple sources, in this case for example multiple Windows computers, and if those files are the same from multiple different devices that are all backing up onto the NAS will know and only keep one copy of that file, and therefore all of the different backup softwares, client platforms, will only need to back up that one file. This is often the case if people are backing up Windows, for example, where multiple different PCs will have the same Windows files, and QDedupe will check that it's the same file with the QDedupe application installed on the Windows machine, as well as for Mac, Ubuntu and some other platforms too. And therefore it allows the NAS to back up multiple devices while still not keeping duplicated information from multiple sources on the NAS and therefore wasting space. So again, a very useful tool, and it arrives highly recommended. So the first thing we're going to do is look at creating a backup rule. We're going to create now a backup routine. As you can see, if you click backup now, you can relink an existing job, which I haven't created yet, or create a new job. let's create a new job. The first thing it's going to want you to do is, as you can see on screen, it's listing the available storage on this NAS. And we have to select the source, i.e. where the data on the NAS that we want to back up. As you see, I've connected that USB drive, but we can ignore that and look at the files here. Let's go into the shared folder that we created in part 1 of this video series, and then from there, select a folder. In the share, we can go in, click it there, and select Next. Next, we want to say what we want to target it at. What is it that we want to target towards? So in this case, we can back up the NAS onto either another folder on the same NAS, which again, if we're looking at USB backups is recommended. We can send to another NAS if we choose, or we can send the data to a cloud service provider. And as you can see, there's a lot of options open to us there. So for now, let's go for that USB drive. We select. From there, we'll have to select the destination folder on this NAS. As we can see, we're going to go for that USB drive here. If we select that USB drive, we can create a brand new folder if we choose. So in this case, let's go ahead and select System, and then from System, click plus, and select a new folder. So we'll call this one Backup Share. From there, it creates the folder. As we can see, backup share will now be created. From there, we can go ahead and click OK. And there we go. We're backing up those 3 folders from the local NAS, and we're sending them there onto the backup share. Lovely and easily. We can view the files and folders if we choose, as well as name it as well. We can edit this file as well right now if we've changed our mind midway through. Click Next, and then from there it will ask us a few little filtering and customization options. So again, we can choose whether we want this to happen whenever we want it to on a single click. We can have it on a schedule so it happens at a certain time of day. So in my case, I'm going to go ahead and create a schedule to happen at midnight every single day. Oh no, got it wrong there. We want to select it periodically or daily at midnight. Again, we'll remove the one-time backup there. And again, we can do it if there's another job on the NAS. We can have it so that this job is actioned when another job is completed, as well as whether you want it to back up immediately after you end this tool, or if you want the USB drive to be ejected immediately after you're done. On top of that, you can have version management. Version management, much like Snapshots, is when every time the backup happens, it will retain a different copy of it for a certain period of time. So in this case, I can say that I want to keep 7 versions of this backup. So that means every time this backup runs daily, it will create a brand new set of all of the backup files every time. After 7 days, it will overwrite the oldest one. Alternatively, you can do smart versioning, where it will only overwrite files if the files are definitely unchanged. New changes, even after 7 days on smart versioning, will not be overwritten. It's quite a useful feature, but do know what you're doing before you go down that road. Lastly, data integrity checks can be set up so that once the data has been sent to the destination, that it's checked by the NAS to make sure there's been no inconsistencies all the way through. This will add to the backup time as well as a little of resource utilization, but if you care a lot about your backups, I recommend you use it. Next, we've got the rules and filters that we can utilize. So for example, if we only want to use certain file types or certain file sizes or files that have been edited in a certain period of time, all of this can be added, as well as if we only want to utilize a certain file type, such as photos, video, or music, or we can go ahead and create our own media file type if we have certain file types that are unique to our user situation, such as if you're utilizing editing files or virtual machine files, and if they're too big or too small or irrelevant to the backup, they can be added there. And then of course you've got things that you can include or exclude depending on your own utility. All of them built in and nice and easy, as well as queue-to-dupe options if you're choosing to make sure that multiple files from different sources that are all the same are only retained in single form, but a record of where they come from is kept. And again, policies can be used on either side, and they do get quite comprehensive, with lots of rules with what happens if a backup fails, if a backup takes too long, and if a backup fails certain things, what you can have the system do in response to that, with lots of different options. And finally, you can choose whether you want to utilize a specialized network. So for example, if you've got a NAS with multiple LAN ports and you want the backup to be on a specific LAN connection that you may have set as static, or as a backup that a LAN cable that has an increased or decreased bandwidth, you can make sure that this backup only runs on that particular network connection. And there you go. You can see the backup in place that's going to be going, how long it will detail how long it takes, where it's going back and from, and if we had created any preset rules, they would have appeared there. Click Create, and it will create this ruling for us. It will also add, if we haven't added integrity checks, that it can add them if we choose. Now, the backup hasn't begun, and if we like, we can go ahead, click the 3 dots, and we can clone it, edit it if we choose, and finally we can run this task if we choose to at any time, or allow it to kick off on the time managed ones that we've created. It's that straightforward. And if we want to create a brand new task, we can go ahead and click New Backup Job. And again, we select a source folder from the NAS. So again, multimedia. And this time we can choose another method. What if we want to back up to another NAS? We're not going to go through all the steps, as a lot of the steps are going to be the same as what we've seen before, but let me show you at least the setup. As you can see, if we're going to go with a backup from another NAS to another NAS, we can go ahead and add a new account immediately if we choose. If there's another NAS, such as another QNAP NAS on the local area network, just go ahead and click the spyglass. It will scan the LAN, and if you've got another QNAP NAS such as I have, it will appear on screen, as you can see there. That is our NAS, there listed on the local area network, with the host name and the IP. We only need the IP for this particular task, but again, there are options open to you. Now that you've got the IP of the destination NAS, it's worth highlighting that in order to communicate with another NAS, you are going to have to enable access on that account. Not only that, but if you're communicating with another QNAP NAS, it's highly recommended that on that other NAS you install Hybrid Backup Sync 3 and then head into those backup services. I'll already go into another NAS that I've got here on the network, over here, and then from this tool, I'll go into Hybrid Backup Sync 3 on that other NAS. Now, what you need to do is head down into Services. In Services on the other NAS, go into either RTRR Server or rsync Server. There are other backup methods such as Apple Time Machine, but we're looking at these because these are the ones that are probably the most used and most reliable for network backups. In RTRR, make sure you enable this box. Once you enable it, a lot of options will appear. It's recommended you leave most of them at default, but bear in mind that if you want, you can create a dedicated password for real-time remote replication that's only associated with a real-time remote replication. Otherwise, if you leave that unticked and click the normal tick, then the login that you have for this NAS, the NAS you want to back up towards, will be valid. The same goes for if you want to utilize rsync for your server synchronization rather than as a remote backup target. Again, tick that box if you want it to have a preset method and login, or leave it unchecked and a tick next to local NAS accounts to use the general NAS login to organize this backup. Again, there is Time Machine, something we'll talk about in a little while. But again, let's head back to the ext4 NAS that we're utilizing here. Now we've enabled remote access, we can go ahead and click Remote NAS Account. Enter the log information for the other NAS on the network that you want to back up towards, and then click Speed Test to double check that the two can communicate. As you can see, thanks to my 1 GBE connection, these two NASes can communicate at 113 megabytes per second. So for here, we click Save. Once it's saved, this new account has been created and we can click Select. From here, it will then ask us to select a folder on that remote NAS to back up onto, or once again if we choose, we can create a brand new one. So let's call this one 653D Backup, and then from there, click the plus folder, and it will add this folder to our list of available folders, and it adds that folder onto that NAS. From there, click OK. And then much like before, we've now got the folder on our local NAS here backing up, and then we've got the destination NAS on the network, and the rest of the steps remain the same with regards to schedule, rules and summary. It's as straightforward as that. Again, there are more options too. We could create a brand new option, for example, this time again backing up from our local NAS. So let's go for the local public folder. We go there, and then from the public folder click Next. But this time we can choose a third-party cloud provider. So for example, Google Drive. Select Google Drive and a pop-up will appear inviting you to synchronize with your Google account. As mentioned, this is our disposable account we use for our videos, and I'm going to go ahead and log in and allow Hybrid Backup Sync 3 to access it. Click it and then enter the login credentials. Once you've added the login credentials for the password and username, go ahead and allow Hybrid Backup Sync to synchronize with that Google Drive account. It will then give it a name, say whether you want to use an SSL certificate and the available storage on the target. Click Create, and it will add this cloud account as an account just like it did before. Click Select. It will list the available folders in that Drive account. Once it does it, select the target that you want to go towards, in my case Q files. Click OK, and boom, it's all ready. And once again, follow the same steps as before and you'll create those multiple backup jobs. And as you add each job, they will be listed on that available list of jobs here, on that list of backup jobs to be actioned at your own convenience or on a schedule. All of them available and listed there. So if we go back into that side menu there, we can have a look at the different options. We've created our backup. If we choose, we can go with synchronization. Synchronization is much like a backup, but it includes both of them running in synchronicitously or in one direction or the other. So again, we select our destination type, and because we've saved details, they're all now going to be available for us to target. So let's create a synchronized folder with the NAS, although if we wanted to, we could synchronize with that Google Drive or any of the many other file types that we've created. But for now, let's synchronize with the other NAS. Again, we've got our local NAS, we've got our remote NAS, and we need to choose a folder. So for example, we can choose in the local NAS, let's synchronize that public folder. And then on the remote NAS, we can synchronize it either with an existing folder on that NAS, or we can create a folder on that NAS that's sync public. We can create a folder in there, create that new folder. It will take a moment while it sends that instruction to the other NAS. Click OK. And now we've got these two folders synchronized, and we can add multiple folders if we choose, as well as what happens if files are the same when being copied over. Do we want them to overwrite, make a duplicate, or not? Then click Next, and again, all of the same retention policies as last time. And again, we can action that to happen live at all times or at a certain time of day, lovely and easily. And again, if we create a new task, we can go with a one-way sync operation, where we can say we only want to go towards the cloud or towards the NAS or back onto our remote NAS or a USB or in the other direction, with lots of different options, all of which all built into the software. Finally, we can look at the available jobs and how they're being actioned, and there's lots of notification panels and updates on all the tasks that have happened. Now, we mentioned this earlier on, but it's worth touching on again. If you want to run backups of a more specialized nature, there are synchronization and configuration options here. If you're a Mac user who uses Apple Time Machine, you can utilize the NAS as a target for your Time Machine backups over the network. You simply need to enable these features here. Make sure that you've ticked both boxes, particularly if you're going to use a shared account, and then on the Mac, log in to Apple Time Machine and then enter the NAS details via the IP listed here at the top, starting in 192, or the remote access credentials from within Time Machine if you prefer. Again, we've gone through rsync and RTRR, and as mentioned, if you are going to back up to this NAS you're using, you will need to activate the credentials for RTRR if you want to utilize the NAS that you're looking at as the target rather than the source. As you can see, I'm going to enable these here for a future video when we look at the QUTS platform, the ZFS platform Hero. And again, I'm going to go ahead, enable localized access there, and there you go. Now this NAS that I'm utilizing is not only usable to back up to other devices, but now it can be utilized as a target backup. Finally, you've got the USB backup option here. The USB backup option here allows you, with a connected USB device, to action those local backups. When you connect a USB drive to your QNAP NAS, as you see here, you can choose whether you only want to use the front USB port or all of the USB ports. You can also choose whether you want to use a one-touch copy button if the NAS has a button on it, as well as smart imports if you only want to back up certain file types, either from the NAS onto the USB or the USB onto the NAS. Largely, all of the options that we saw earlier on in the backups jobs that we created earlier are available, but this is a far more USB targeted one, which means in some cases if you choose, when you connect the USB drive, you can set it up that the backup will happen as soon as you connect the drive, not just when you click the backup button or go into the software here to back it up. You've got to select the individual files and folders on the NAS that you want to back up to. Also, you can choose whether you want the USB to be automatically software ejected once the job is done, and also for the system to beep when it's done, and how you want to be notified, whether it's simple audio notifications or linked to the notification center for you to get push notifications to your phone, email notifications, and more. All of them built in. The steps are largely the same as everything we've seen so far, but with the added difference that if you want, you can choose between automated backups to a USB, time-managed backups to a USB, or manual actioned if you choose. There's lots of flexibility there. But those are pretty much all of the big services of Hybrid Backup Sync 3. It's by far the biggest job management tool for backups and synchronization on the QNAP, and it's highly recommended. Let's talk about some of those other tools. Now, Virtual JBOD and Hybrid Mount are two tools on the QNAP NAS platform which really take the idea of remote storage and with the appearance of localized storage to a whole new level. Virtual JBOD allows you to create or utilize unused areas of storage on your QNAP NAS and bolt them onto other storage devices, be they other NASs or cloud platforms. It's a really useful service, and if you're an enterprise level user that has lots of cloud bubbles floating around, it's a great way to pair them all together in the most efficient way possible. It's quite an enterprise tool, and it's going to be very hard to show you in this user-friendly video, but I will integrate Virtual JBOD a little bit into the enterprise video coming soon, but I did think it was worth a mention. However, a lot of home users may well find benefit utilizing Hybrid Mount. Hybrid Mount does much the same thing as just described as the likes of Virtual JBOD, with one big difference. This is in the other direction. It allows you to connect remote devices or cloud services to your NAS and view them and interact with them as you would localized storage, like all of these files and folders. Now, what we're going to do is guide you through how to create a remote mounted connection with your Google Drive space. Let's go ahead and create one now. Let's go with the cloud service provider and click the plus symbol. What we're going to do is open up a file cloud gateway. You can go for a remote NAS drive if you choose, but for now we're going to go for that file gateway. First thing we're going to do is select our cloud provider, in this case Google Drive. Once again, it will ask if this new application, Hybrid Mount, can connect with your Google Drive account. You have to give it permission, and then from there it will guide you back onto the QNAP NAS GUI via your web browser. There's the connection name. It will ask you the destination folder that you want to utilize. Is it all the folders or individual folders on that storage area? I'm going to go for all folders. Click Next. Then it will ask you how much space you want to utilize. So it will have the available storage open to you there, which of the NAS's storage pools you want to connect this to. And again, most of these options you should be able to manage because a lot of that information will be visible and available in the storage manager. And again, as we add these bits of storage, they will appear here at the bottom left. Once again, we can go ahead and say what we want to happen when new versions of a file appear on either side, but most of these options I would leave as default based on your storage area. It's now connecting our mounted storage area to the NAS, and it will make that area of storage on the Google Drive now visible and in a native fashion as you see it here on File Station when it's completed. As you can see, it's now added our storage area, and we can click Close. Again, we can go ahead and add another remote area if we choose, and this time via utilizing another NAS on the local area network, or we can add a cloud service if we choose. So if there's another NAS on the local area network, such as the one we've chosen, we go ahead, find it as it's found it here, enter the login credentials, click Connect for it to be able to communicate with that NAS. As you can see, it's already got the host already identified. We've got our login information. Select a destination folder if we choose that we want to bolt on to our existing storage. I'm going to keep it nice and easy. Let's go for the home folder. We don't want too much data in the background there. And then again, we can say whether we want to be able to take advantage of thumbnails or multimedia playback and bolt those onto our first party media applications on this NAS. Go ahead, click Create, and boom, we've now added that other NAS. And now we've added two remote areas of storage onto our NAS. But now if we reopen the file manager along with the storage manager, we're able to see that not only have we got all of our shared folders, but now we've got our Google Drive. We've got our remote NAS folder all accessible. So again, I can go into the drive and access all of those files that are on the Google Drive via this native application, with the added benefit that if I choose, I can now connect with this area of storage on my local computer. How would I do that? Easily. If we leave Hybrid Mount and talk about our final synchronization and in some cases used right backup tool, QSync. Now QSync is a great little tool. QSync allows you to synchronize multiple devices from phones to desktop computers with the NAS, but in a native fashion. So if you head over to the QNAP NAS website, find your NAS once again, go to Downloads. From Downloads, select your NAS, and this time go into the Utility option. You'll find an application down here called QSync. Find your platform, such in my case Windows, and download the tool and install it. Once you've downloaded and installed the tool, you can utilize it on your local computer, such as I've done here, to connect with the NAS. Now what this will do is it will allow you to add a folder on your local computer that is visible here on the computer here as you see, and these are files that are on that NAS. So, for example, right now, if we go ahead and create a brand new synchronization, click plus, we can either search the local area for the NAS or allow the NAS to be entered manually, but in our case, let's add it here. We click select. We then add in those login credentials. Again, we can add the name of our local computer if we choose. Click Apply. Now QSync is going to communicate with this NAS here. As we can see, if we go with Devices, we can see that that computer has now appeared. If we head back into QSync, we now select a folder on the NAS that we want to synchronize with. So in this case, let's click Add. We select a folder on this NAS. There's the QSync folder if we choose, or by heading back into this application, we can create a new team folder. So our new team folder, let's click Next. Oh, we have to go back into the main folder array. Apologies. Go with a shared folder there. We make sure that one of these shared folders is now locally accessible. So let's go with the public folder again. Click Allow. That shared folder is now going to be QSync accessible. Once that's done, we can add that folder if we choose to the team folder, but we're not going to do that. We're going to stick with the shared folder for now. Go back into QSync here, come back, select the folder again. As you can see, the public folder is now accessible. Click Apply. On our local folder, we can either utilize the QSync folder that it's created or create a brand new folder. So in this case, let's go ahead and go into my own account dump there. Let's go into the Pictures folder and create a brand new folder there and just call that one QSync Test. Use QSync Test, click OK. And then we can go ahead and click Apply. So now we've got two kinds of synchronization there between the two. We've got the default synchronization and the brand new one I've created. Click Finish. And now my PC has a synchronized folder in the Pictures directory. If we go in and find that folder, QSync Test, and now we've got that synchronized folder on my local computer with that of QSync. But remember, we can also start to attach some of those remote access ones if we choose, if we synchronize them between the other applications we've talked about. On top of that, QSync allows version control, so you can maintain a historical record of the data, so every time there's synchronization, it's kept over a period of time, and you can revert to an older version if you choose. Again, you can share folders from QSync within the application, or go directly into the QSync folder here and amend or change or share the synchronized folders between the NAS on your local computer. Moreover, if you go back into this area here, you can right click and have some options unique to QSync, where we can move individual items between NASes, copy them between different NASes, and synchronize and share folders, as well as pin files and folders if we choose. As you can see, lots of different options there. Remember, QSync can be installed on multiple computers that all have access to the same NAS via the network or via the internet, rather than using localized login credentials to add a new QSync area. If you're accessing the NAS remotely, it's recommended that you do utilize, instead of utilizing the local area, that you use your QNAP ID that you've associated with your My QNAP Cloud remote access account. Now, if you are accessing the NAS both over the network and via the internet, you can add both kinds of connection, and therefore, whether you're working in the office or on the train, the folders and the synchronized folders on the NAS between both the PC and locally will maintain their access. And again, installing QSync on mobile phones and multiple desktop computers will allow all of those devices to not only back up to, but also synchronize with the same shared folder area. And if you're a business user or a small team running multiple projects that need access to the same repository of information, but you're all uploading data to it, and you want to utilize your local native file folder software, it's a great way to do it. And remember, all of those devices can be monitored and have their credentials and access changed from read to write to no access at all easily, along with listings on all individual users that have got access. but I'm going to wrap things up here. This has been the full range of backup and synchronize options open to you on QNAP QTS 5.0. We're going to be making a similar video to this using the QUTS ZFS platform and highlighting some of the key differences very, very soon, as well as a dedicated, more enterprise level video for both platforms that will take a greater look at QObjects, BoxSafe and Hyperdata Protector. If you found this video helpful, click like and let me know, because otherwise, how will I know I'm getting things done right? Also, click the bell and be notified for part 3 in this video series, where we will be looking a lot more at multimedia on the NAS. Photos, video, music, and of course Plex Media Server, and later on, surveillance and virtualization. And again, do take advantage of the free advice section over on NAS Compares. It is linked in the description. It is completely free and available to home and business users alike. It's manned by 2 humans, me and Eddie the web guy, and we give free, impartial advice to anyone that needs it. It's done first come, first serve, and it's manned by 2 humans, so although it might take us an extra day or so to answer you, we do answer every inquiry as much as we can. And there's a donate button there if you want to help us out, but you can ignore it, and we don't do anything with your email. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.